good at playing with words. They always talk about gun control. How about right control? Because when you go against the Second Amendment, that's our right. That's our God-given right, not only by God, but by the founding fathers. So why don't you just call it what it really is, right control? You're taking our rights away. You cannot regulate evil. Evil is evil, and evil is always going to be persistent, and it's always going to be here. So why get rid of our ability to protect ourselves? The Second Amendment right protects the rest of them, and it protects us. It protects your home, your body, and your spirit, because without it, how are you going to protect yourself? Don't be a sheep. Don't follow just because it's popular. Think for yourself. Be yourself. Be that individual that God made you to be. He wasn't born to follow. He was born to lead. Welcome back to the Real News with Lucretia Hughes and Dave. Like I said, do not forget, in 2 weeks, the NRA convention will be downtown Atlanta at the World Congress Center. So like I said, I'm going to need as much help as possible. Boots on the ground, passing out flyers, passing out whatever we could get. And if you would like to donate, because trying to get 5,000 flyers ain't going to be cheap. Trying to get pens and peppermint to pass out that time is not going to be cheap. So if y'all please get over there, donate, and share. And if you're interested to actually come to the convention and help pass out flyers, please get in contact with me and let me know. Dave? So right now, because Dave on the phone, but our next guest is here. Y'all, if you've ever watched the Georgia game on your TV, if you ever seen him on Fox 5 Atlanta, if you ever seen him on Fox News, period. He's a commentator, he's an author, he writes articles. If you want to know anything about Georgia politics, national politics, international politics, you ask Phil. So Phil, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Lucretia. How you doing?
I still got tears in my eyes because Jake Hudson decided to write a song about me, and I really appreciate it.
Well, great to be with you.
Thank you so much. Now, because I got your article, I went to your website. Listen to this. It says Kent is the president of the Atlanta-based Phil Kent Consultant Inc., which specializes in media communications. Need your help. It says, as an author, columnist, a media commentator, Phil has appeared on Fox News Network, CNN, MSNBC. I can see why you got gray hair. And syndicated talk radio program across the nation. And you write books. Go ahead and tell us the dark side of liberalism. Is that keying Tesla's or firebombing Shapiro's office?
You're killing me. I love it.
How you doing? What's going on in America?
Well, I tell you what, plenty. And the good news for folks on the center right of the political spectrum is that President Donald Trump is promising and delivering. And who would have thought, Lucretia, let's take one quick example to start with. Who would have thought that within 100 days, our border would basically be secure, and the deportations, especially of these violent, illegal alien criminal gangs, are starting apace. So we're looking at a tax cut from Congress, from the Republicans. We're looking at unleashing our energy, the drill baby drill program by the president. We are looking at tariffs that'll bring in money to America. Yeah, there's going to be some disruption, but already how many trillions have coming into America with companies coming back or starting? You know, the mainstream liberal corporate media doesn't tell you a lot about that.
That's because they're in the pocket. Not only are they in the pocket, we found out just through Doge alone that we was funding all of this political propaganda and that was pushed up against the United States. We was paying Politico to fact check. We was paying these corporations and these media companies to push propaganda and lie to the American people. I don't even understand how the CIA could get away with doing that.
Well, you're making some good points, and it really is a shocker, not just to people who followed this over the years. As a journalist, I've tried to follow it. I've always suspected, like most Americans, that there's waste, fraud, and corruption. But as you point out, this is the first time that we've actually had somebody come in and do these audits. It's really, as I say, a shocker. I don't know why in the world we have these inspector generals of these different agencies of the federal government that missed this. No wonder, a lot of people were upset that the inspector generals were fired a few weeks ago. You remember
Yes,
that?
yes.
But they should have been. They didn't catch any of this that Elon Musk and his team is getting.
Well, it kind of reminds you of not Lois Lerner, but Bill Clinton and the black lady that was the attorney general that was getting off the airplane where all of a sudden, Hillary Clinton and her mess went away. It's the same thing with these attorney generals all over the United States. I believe they was threatened to either shut up, don't pay attention, and don't bring light to this. And if you do, we have a kill list or maybe a video on you doing something that's illegal.
Well, you're making a good point, and you're touching on what a lot of people didn't fully realize: the deep state, that entrenched bureaucracy that has this unholy alliance with the left-wing media and with the left wing that has captured the Democratic Party. As you know, Lucretia, the Democratic Party is not what it was even a dozen years ago.
No.
I mean, it's incredible how radical they've become, and you're right, the corruption is just stunning.
Now, if you go back in history, communism was a big thing that should not be allowed in the United States for a time there. But in 1963, you had the 45 Rules of Communist Goals, where everything has been manifested except the Connolly Reservation Act and destroying or discrediting and dismantling the FBI. But they're doing a great job at it by themselves. Is this all planned? Because it's like Paul Harvey. If I was the devil, all of this it locks in step the Agenda 21, Agenda 30, and not only that, you got to wrap in Klaus Schwab in the World Economic Forum.
Well, you have done your homework. In fact, you're bringing back a memory of my childhood when I was listening to Paul Harvey. And I remember the steps on how you would destroy America through communism, but it's actually been stepped up ever since the fall of the Soviet Union, as you well know. And we're trying to educate people, and that's why I appreciate folks like you with your program trying to educate people, because what's happening, and if you think about it, how would you destroy the United States of America? Well, number
Apathy,
one, we just
apathy.
touched on open borders,
Mm-hmm.
and number two, dividing us. They are very good, whether it's black versus white, gay versus straight, poor versus rich. I mean, you name it, and they're trying to divide us, and we can't fall for it.
Well, it's me personally, because I didn't become I didn't become a Republican. And to believe it or not, John McCain also, and then it was the other loser. I mean, the other guy that decided to blow his chances against Barack Obama. Barack Obama was the start of this division and Cold War apathy inside of the United States. I don't know why this guy could have been one of the greatest organizers, because he was, and but he decided to be the greatest divider. But he said he was going to fundamentally change America, and I don't even know if law means the same thing as under the Constitution anymore.
Well, you're making some good points. I would disagree with one thing.
Okay.
I would say that this subversion and the deep state and the rise of the left started out 30, 40 years ago. You might could go back a little further. I mean, remember, in right after World War II, we were having communist spies. We were having treason, the Rosenberg trial. We had the State Department was pro-communist back then.
But you got to realize, I was born in '74.
I know. That's why I'm teasing you a little bit. Give it.
I didn't pay. I'm sorry, I did not pay attention.
You're too young. You're too young here. I got a few more years on you.
I didn't pay attention until the truckers, the bikers, and the veterans rally. And I wouldn't even say I was a Democrat. I was just apathetic and didn't care, because it really didn't hit me. And when I realized that it was the veteran that really made me start paying attention, there was an episode where a veteran ran out of the VA hospital in Atlanta, Georgia, and set himself on fire. My whole life, and that is the main reason I started paying attention. My kids, my dads, I come from a military family. So when I decided to finally get up and do something, I found the nearest Tea Party group first, not a Republican group. Then I went to a John Bircher, then a Madison Forum. Do you understand these outside groups teach more about this than even the Republican Party does?
Well, you're making a very good point, and as a veteran myself, I really can empathize with you. I remember that tragic day in Atlanta when we saw that poor, distraught vet commit suicide. It was very sad, but I'm glad that that was an awakening. And you're right; a lot of the outside groups are to be commended for the educational network. And talk radio, I don't have to tell you, is so important for educating people. The late great Rush Limbaugh really got the ball rolling, as you know, and we still dominate. The right really dominates radio, and I think we're making inroads. I try to be optimistic, Lucretia. I think we're making inroads with those in the center that are waking up like you once did. And they weren't necessarily knew what they were politically, but they're waking up. They know something's wrong, and the fact that Trump won convincingly last November, people knew that the Democratic Party was on the wrong road, and that open borders and rising crime and inflation was not the way to go.
And then you got to think about it this way. George Soros, the great, I say that he got many hearts in his dungeon, as old and curmudgeon this guy is. He owns or just recently acquired 200 urban and small rural area radio stations. So he's about to be another, I don't know, Univision inside of the United States. How do we even combat that when we found out even through Doge, we was paying George Soros millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to flood back into the United States, whether it was Act Blue, the election interference, but we was actually paying this guy to destroy us from within, and he's rich.
Well, you're right. He's a gazillionaire and he hates America. He said when I was researching for one of my books, he said that the main obstacle to justice and peace in the world is the United States of America. He hates us. He has been trying to bring us down. He has the open society that is a tax exempt foundation that it works around the world, not just the United States, to undermine Western civilization. I'm going to be blunt about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty blunt about it. The good news is you've got Trump in there that knows what we know, and this is when I was growing up. I knew that there was a war between the globalists, the one world socialists, the UN lovers. They don't like our national sovereignty. They don't like American patriotism. They don't think we're an exceptional country. And the Democratic Party has been hijacked. Sadly, the Republican Party has some of these people in it. The Rockefellers, for example. And it's a battle now. And Thomas Jefferson warned this. There's a battle versus the elites versus the regular people. And you can see that because you mentioned McCain and Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney.
I never heard them talking about the Republican Party looking out for the workers. Donald Trump, in my lifetime, is the first Republican presidential nominee back in 2015 that said this is going to be a workers' party. And I'm glad he brought in a lot of these folks.
Hey, man. This is one thing that I was very disappointed with the Republican Party inside of Georgia. Last year on the ballot, and it was during the primary, there was question number 8. I will never forget this. And here's a question to Republican voters. Do we authorize unelected bureaucrats like the World Health Organization, the WHO, and the UN to make decisions about our health and our medical health? And do we relinquish ours? I was like, I made a live that day. I had more people that said they wasn't going to vote get to the voting booth and vote just because question 8 was on there. And I kept that ballot. I could not believe that the people inside of the Republican Party, especially the elective board, the executive board, would put that and test the citizens, all 11 million, and we know only maybe like 2 to 3 million actually Republicans get out there to vote. But I can't believe they tried to sneak that in. We are a sovereign state inside of a sovereign nation, and we have the Constitution and the rule of law. How in the world do the Republicans could even fix their fingers to try to give our sovereignty over to, let's say it, the New World Order, because I believe in that.
Well, you're making a good point, and we touched on a little bit. You did. It's education, and a lot of our Republicans, and I don't think they're stupid, and I don't think they're evil. I think they're just ill-informed. I know a lot of people I try to talk to people that aren't necessarily political and try to point things out like you point things out, like the WHO, or maybe it could be gun control, or maybe it could be don't you want to be safe and have the right to keep and bear arms, or perhaps it's you don't want illegal immigration swamping our healthcare system and also our schools. It could be any of those issues, and if we try to educate people, and I think we're getting there. We're not there yet. We got a lot of work to do, but it's things like you're pointing out. We just have to educate people. COVID, I think, educated people on how we can lose our freedoms with the snap of a finger.
Absolutely. What they did, and I would say the powers that be, I mean the powers, because there was only two people that really spoke up and said something after 2 years or at least 18 months of this bullshniggity. That was Ted Cruz and also Marco Rubio. When they started going to bat and asking, hey, where are the legislators at? You cannot bulldoze over the Constitution of the United States. And that's pretty much what they did when they gave us the shutdown. Then they might have shut us down and they picked and choose who was winners or losers. But one thing they did not do is shut off our knowledge and our information. And that's why I think they muzzled us, because how do we fight the powers that be? We talk to each other and we get the real information out there. And that's where you start seeing false information, misinformation, disinformation, or bold-faced lies. Where no information is false or wrong. This is where you start doing your research to come up with the truth.
Well, you're making a good point, to several good points, actually. As you know, I'm a veteran journalist, started my career in journalism and continue it. And the misinformation is just horrible. And of course, social media is terrible with that, as you well know, and many well know. Thank goodness for Elon Musk back a couple of years ago, taking over Twitter and renaming it X. And you remember how they censored a lot of the school of thought in medicine, and how we had to be careful during COVID, and how lockdowns were not the answer. Masks were not the answer. The CDC, controlled by left wingers right here in Atlanta, the Centers for Disease Control, kept giving all these conflicting, confusing, anti-freedom directives, and it's being cleaned up now, yes. But even President Trump, as much as I admire the man for his leadership, I don't think he understood at first. It took him a while to understand that the left and the one worlders and the globalists were using this to erode and undermine our national sovereignty, as you point out.
Well, we have the Constitution. I always said the only thing that is stopping the world elite, the globalists, and the all of them is the Constitution of the United States. That's the one thing that has gotten in the way of all of these dictators around the world, these money-hungry people, is that we got laws and rules in America that cannot easily be eroded. And if they could get rid of, like they said, the Democrats, repeal and replace, repeal and replace. If that can do that, we would all be a number on the global scale.
Well, you're making a good point, and you asked a little earlier about how can we fight back. Well, through education, yes, but also at the ballot box, as you well know. And I think that we've got to, I always try to call friends and mobilize family and co-workers, get them to the polls, because the left is very organized in that area. I think we did a pretty good job in Georgia, and I think we targeted various constituencies, if you will, including Hispanics and African Americans, and brought out, I think, the white blue-collar worker, too, that didn't necessarily vote in the past. So we got to keep that up in Georgia and elsewhere. But I think we're on the right track. And with Trump, to pointing out to your points, too, shutting down the money that goes to the left and these so-called NGOs, the non-government organizations that are controlled by liberals, I think that's really going to be helping us. Again, I'm optimistic. I know that the economy is a bread and butter issue that everybody worries about. I worry about my 401k like you do. But I think that in the long run, Trump has a good plan. He's using tariffs as a tool, just like Obama did, Clinton did, Ronald Reagan, as you remember. Some of these moderate Republicans say, well, Reagan was a free trader. Well, yes, but he was for fair trade. You remember now, I don't know if you remember this, you were young, but back in the 1980s, Japan was dumping all this cheap junk into America.
What I was getting ready
and
to
Reagan
ask you
said,
about.
stop, we're going to have tariffs to stop it. And he saved, for example, the Harley Davidson Motorcycle Company, and it worked.
What do you feel about NAFTA? Do you think NAFTA, and that's because we was recently doing a lot of talking about NAFTA, which happened in the 1980s. I'm thinking it's free trade, and when all of the companies, do you think reforming NAFTA, or like you said, the tariffs, will bring these companies back into the United States to start actually booming up the economy?
Well, as we do this show today, we know that several trillion dollars are also coming in and promised by these over 70 companies that Trump and his team are negotiating with. And that's bringing back plans to America. I was never in favor of NAFTA. I think Pat Buchanan back in the day was one of the few folks that warned about putting China into the World Trade Organization, NAFTA, which allowed Canada and Mexico to rip us off along with other countries. And it was bipartisan. Republicans like George Bush went along with it, and we see the consequences now, and we cannot sustain these trillions of dollars that we've running up into debt like a credit card. And so, I believe, is a lot of Republicans now believe that bilateral and multilateral agreements are great. I mean, Trump in his first term did a good treaty with Mexico and Canada and straightened that out. The tariffs worked in Trump's first term against China. You may remember that Biden did some horrible things and got rid of a lot of good Trump policies, but the one thing he did keep was Biden. It was the Trump tariffs. He kept those.
Two questions. That wasn't Biden. What do you think of the auto pen? And then here's a bigger one. What do you know? Because I'm just figuring out about Nasira and Desira.
Well, the auto pen was horrible, and I hope that that's being investigated. I don't know if anybody can be nailed for that legally. I've talked to lawyers on our side, and probably you have too, but I don't think we can get him on that. We don't. I think you and I know, and a lot of people know who was running the country. It was his left-wing advisors, a lot of them Obama people. But tell me about what your thoughts are, on that. I'd like to hear your take too, Lucretia.
It should be null and void. He had no idea what he was signing, and we found out that the only real signature of Joe Biden was when he was getting ready to step down because they was doing a coup d'etat. But even all of the pardon from his crackhead son, all the way to the bag of cocaine, all the way to Fauci, anything that he did need to be called to question. If you haven't, a sitting attorney general said, you know what? Yeah, he did all that, but he's just the measly old man, a forgetful old man. Y'all should just let it go. No, sir. You set in motion things that was detrimental not only to the world but to the United States. And if you cannot call or make account for what you signed, then it should be null and void.
Well, and I hope that the new FBI director, Kash Patel, will follow up on what you're saying and maybe dig out some evidence and proof. Yeah, Biden was senile. Yeah, Biden didn't know what was going on half the time. But we need to get some proof that these people were conspiring and nail them, like you say.
Well, Susan Rice was part of his administration. That one particular day that Obama went to the White House and Joe Biden was up there giving a speech behind, he had the gold curtain behind him. And then all of a sudden, he just started turning around like he was talking to a ghost. And there go Obama, who was getting most of the accolades, the congratulations, way to go, Mr. President. And the real resident in evil was forgot about in the background. That tells you right there who was the main head. But Obama said it. If I had a third term, I'll be in the basement somewhere and I have a microphone. Somebody would have an earpiece and I'll be looking at all of these briefings and tell them what to say. But I called him the dry snitching king because he's forever telling on himself.
Well, you're making some good points. I remember that one episode. There were several of them where you could tell that he had to read his instructions. It's really it's upsetting. And if you're not upset and angry, you're not paying attention. I tell people, but we got to. I think more people. At least last November, I think enough people in the center of our politics here in the country understood that you can't have a senile man just running the country with these horrible advisors.
Number one, the Democratic Party is a has-been party with approval rating of maybe 20 to 25%. You did a coup d'etat on the President of the United States, did not listen to any of your members and appointed a confused woman that didn't know what color she was, and they passed that off as a viable candidate when majority of the time my grandkids can't even understand the point she's trying to make.
Well, that's right. They really shot themselves in the foot, and it certainly tore the mask off of what I call the dark side of liberalism. And she was a horrible communicator. And so, but the problem is we still have some powerful enemies to our republic, and within the media and within the universities, and of course within the Democratic Party. You remember back in 2007, that Barack Obama was an obscure state senator out of Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and yet the establishment at the time, the left wingers, picked him. They knew he was articulate, they knew he was smooth, and they had the media allies behind him. They sold him like Coca-Cola and marketed him. And I'm afraid, and we have to be on guard, that they're going to find somebody else. We may not even know who this person will be, but they're going to find somebody. They're not going to repeat a Kamala Harris again.
Well, here, if you're looking at Twitter, here's the ones that keep throwing up. Ready for this? Jasmine Crockett, AOC. No, 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 no.
Yeah, we're going to win with them.
AOC, Bernie Sanders. Stop it, stop it. Here's another one. Kamala Harris and Shapiro. Number one, you got too many Jew haters in the Democratic Party. That's not going to happen. Then here's another one. Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Booker. They can't keep their hands off other people. So how that going to work? I mean, allegedly in the bathrooms, just, just grabbing people by the balls. But, it is what it is. It's just we in trouble. I like J.D. Vance. Who's going to be with J.D. Vance? Please.
Well, and this is going to be interesting. I think, as you well know, we've got some great leaders, conservative, patriotic leaders that, like J.D. Vance, Ron DeSantis. You've got some people in the cabinet, for example, that are very, very qualified to run for president down the road. I'm really happy with the farm team that the conservatives have within the Republican Party. And I think we've got, as long as we can have parts of the media, whether it's X with Elon Musk, or whether it may be getting our people on Fox News or on the internet, social media is our friend with a lot of these videos. Young people, especially, Lucretia, they appreciate short videos. They're not going to pay attention for very long, but that's helping our cause. But I'm happy about our leadership. And as you point out, the Democrats just have some sorry leaders.
Well, I'm going to say something. Gen X in the house. Gen X in the house. I mean, our side is all Gen Xers. When our teachers used to say, "One day you're gonna be a leader," we are there.
Good.
At least
we got to get them to the polling place, but that's good.
But at least we wasn't on the street last weekend, because did you see who was protesting on the street, and they was being bussed in? They was Nancy Pelosi age.
Yes, I love it.
We got 2 minutes left. Okay, you got to come back, because this is we at the end of the first hour of the show. You like a Jerome Corsi. You need a nickname, and I need to pick your head a lot, because I think we ain't even scratched the surface.
Well, listen, we just clicked here at Lucretia. It's a beautiful thing. I'd love to come back, and we didn't even touch on half of what we wanted to, but I'm enjoying being with you and getting to know you better.
Okay, my husband, he gave me the stank eye. He want me to ask you this because he's just started writing articles. Oh, and my husband gonna write a kick-ass article on you too. As a journalist, what do you think of AI?
Well, I tell you what, it's going to put a lot of journalists out of business, and maybe a lot of liberals will be in journalism, be looking for other jobs. But I think there's good and there's bad, to be honest about it. I'm trying to be objective here. I think it can help people do research, and again, you got to be careful of misinformation. I think it can help you become a better writer. On the other hand, you don't want to get too lazy. You still want to do your research, and you got to, like you just said earlier, you got to make sure it's not misinformation. But it's going to change the way we work and live, and we have to adapt to change. So AI can be a good tool, but it can be a dark tool.
Thank you. And everybody, if you know anybody, feel that want to sponsor me at the NRA convention, tell them please. because I need
I
it.
will do it, and let me have people know. Go to my publishing company website, jamesmagazinega.com.
JamesMagazineGA.com. And I even
That's
like
right.
this even
You
better.
can you can
Phil
read all
Kent,
about it.
PhilKent.com, right?
Right.
So you got PhilKent.com, and one more time with the other one.
JamesMagazineGA.com.
JamesMagazineGA.com.
All Georgia oriented.
All right. Thank you so much. And please come back. And don't even worry about scheduling. To be like, Christian, can I come back? It's a 2-hour show. We can pull
Sounds
a
good.
3-hour if necessary, especially if something happened major in Georgia, or you just say like, "Hey, I want to come back on." Yes, sir.
Sounds good, Lucretia. Thank you.
Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Go ahead, Dave. Are you a voting member of the NRA? My name is Lucretia Hughes Klugen. I will never compromise my beliefs in God, family, our country, and my Second Amendment. I am running for the board of directors of the NRA, and I would appreciate your vote. Politicians are very good at playing with words. They always talk about gun control. How about right control? Because when you go against the Second Amendment, that's our right. That's our God-given right, not only by God, but by the founding fathers. So why don't you just call it what it really is, right control? You're taking our rights away. You cannot regulate evil. Evil is evil, and evil is always going to be persistent, and it's always going to